And we are back with another episode of the Julius Files. I am your host, Jasan Julius, and today we've got a special podcast because I did something new for the team, and then coincidentally, and we never did actually go live. That's probably something
I said that to Trish on the way back, and I go, I forgot, and I think he did too. And I was like, do I call and tell? I was like, nah, he's going to be mad.
So on November 8th, Coffee Junkies officially turned 18 years old. And November 8th was a Wednesday, and just so happens that at the same time, I conducted my first offsite with my team I would think that probably most small businesses, most people listening to this might not be overly familiar with what an offsite is. I did a 4-day offsite. I gathered up my leadership team. I tucked them away in a lodge where we were by ourselves for 4 days. I brought in a coach so that we could do a team analysis and a SWOT analysis. A SWOT analysis is SWOT, S-W-O-T, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. I don't think that I could have asked for this to go any better. I have never experienced this myself, although I know that a lot of companies perform these types of offsites through in different ways. And through the chatter with the group after, it became very clear to me that I accomplished what I was looking to accomplish in this offsite. So today I have Matt with me. Matt is my chief of staff, and he, right alongside of everybody else, had massive anxiety leading up to this offsite. So much to the point that it was actually, their anxiety was frustrating me, and it was stripping me of my excitement and enthusiasm because I was really looking forward to this. But I had a very pointed reason that I was looking forward to this, and all of their anxiety was building up to the point where I was like you're going to fuck up a really good thing here because your anxiety is going to ruin it before we ever actually get it off the ground.
Well, I would like to say that is completely your fault.
And I'm not going to say that well, we can talk about that in general because I want to be ultimately transparent about this. This one's where I'm hoping that Matt's liable to do hopefully a lot more talking inside of this podcast because I wanted his perspective. The anxiety he's referring to was comically intentional. Because it was just all in good fun. The anxiety I'm referring to was, I think it was probably based due to a lack of trust, and I'm hoping that is one of the mountains that we eclipsed and got over through the actual offsite itself. Because I think all of them were having a certain anxiety about being locked up together. Maybe locked up is not the appropriate word.
We were locked up.
I went out of my way through Airbnb to find a lodge in a remote area to make sure that there was a certain solitude to the event. And I was even nervous about the place that I chose, and it ended up being just a fabulous location. I just don't think I could have asked for better.
Well, I mean, Mother Nature played a huge role in making it as good as it was.
Mm-hmm.
We're in the Midwest in November, and to have a day where it literally hit 80 degrees.
I don't recall the 80 part, but every day was, generally speaking, 70-ish, and I was very grateful.
Yeah, Wednesday, in the morning, actually, it hit 80.
Yeah, Mother Nature was very kind.
Came.
Yes.
But yeah, we had great weather. Lucked out. Would have been a whole different trip if the weather would have been typical.
Any different, yeah.
Midwest November.
Well, because of this is kind of a smaller relevant side of it, but through the course of a Okay, one, what I'm talking about is when I say getting all my managers together, I'm talking about getting all the managing partners together from all of the businesses inside of the organization. And it's like they work with each other, but they really don't work with each other. And I have picked all of them, so I work with all of them. But the whole premise was the speed of trust and getting them to truly work with each other. And we were trying to pull this off in the summertime where I could have found a place that had a pool and a jacuzzi and all of these niceties that you would expect to be able to enjoy in the summertime, but we couldn't get everybody's schedules to line up between the different businesses and the different events that everybody was conducting to actually pull off a time frame that also lined up with not coinciding with when payroll had to come out. It was actually pretty challenging just to get to setting these dates in general.
Just to find 4 days.
Yes, but it was good. It was really good. Again, I'm looking for more input from you on this. So I mean, on
where should
right
I start?
here, I will let you. Yeah, I mean, your impressions or your thoughts leading up to it.
Well, leading up to it, my biggest worry was food,
which was the comical.
That was the comical part that went sideways because he wouldn't give us any answers.
Because in an offsite, you are you are trying to work lines of communication and give them skill building tasks and assignments to not only observe how they work together, but to also unpack how they worked together once they clear the assignment. So we decided that
we're going to torture us.
Going about how we were going to get fed through the remainder or through the course of the entire thing was going to be part, in fact, of the assignment. Now, my task was that I was to bring a feast for the first night and that I was to have breakfast the next morning. And then after that, then they had to figure out lunch and dinner, breakfast, lunch and dinner, and breakfast of the next day. And in my own head, I knew that while I had a budget in my head, I was not going to give them a budget. And while I had the ability to pay, I was also adamant that there was no cash on premises, so they had to figure out how they were actually going to pay for this, how they were going to execute this.
I'm curious to get to that. Well, we can either hop into that right now, or
I don't want to. I'm just trying to clarify because I'm sitting here thinking that the listening audience that I would potentially have for this might not be familiar with an offsite or what I was trying to accomplish with it.
Right. Well, I mean, yeah, I wasn't familiar with it. I mean, I knew the general. It's okay. You're going off site. What's happening once you get off site was anybody's guess, and you definitely were playing into everybody's anxieties and fears of all of us being locked away in this cabin. But it was not how it seemed going into it. I think I can speak for the entire team. All of us had a ton of anxiety leading up to it. And typically I don't have anxiety unless my food's worried about, and then it gets a little concerning. But I thought
and I made it. I mean, like, let me tell you. I mean, we ate good every night, but that first night, I mean, like they ate like kings. I made sure
we ate good the entire time.
But more or less, yes. There was more than enough across the board.
I have purposely not been on a scale since we got back. We had access to cookies. That was not healthy. That was a bad choice. But yeah. So then day one was pretty much just the feast, and then you dropping your big news on us.
Which that's because I'm pretty sure that podcast will come out before this podcast because I made the podcast saying, these are the things that I've realized. This is where we're headed. This is what I'm doing. And while I'm recording this, they will know about it before this.
Yeah, I still haven't got a chance to watch.
Recording actually hits, yeah.
Before it goes live to the people.
Because there is a bigger lesson or a bigger realization inside of that podcast too. Massive transformations can happen when you change your environment. And this was a
Which is true.
A taste of that. And that's the reason that I wanted an offsite, is because we can continually get meetings, but everybody's phone is always blowing up, and we'll have a meeting in one of the operations, and then somebody's always in somebody's ear. Having an offsite like this was the ability to remove everybody from their daily operating environment and get them into a communal environment where we were there to focus on team building, analysis of the business, and understanding each other's strengths and weaknesses on a deeper level.
Right. All with the point of working better as a team in the end, which we have not had a work day since, so yet to be determined on how it actually works out. But I feel pretty good about it.
So I talked to Shane about that, and I told her that what I was looking for was that I was looking at potentially pulling everybody together again Saturday to try and make sure that I was doing everything I could to sustain the realizations, the talked about improvements, the further strengthening of communication to make sure that we carried it out, because that's one of the biggest risks of an offsite, is that you will have these massive realizations and these coming to Jesus moments, and you will have all of that excitement about like anything that you go to, and then you won't carry it forward and actually take those things and have applied improvements for the duration, which is ultimately, like, I didn't do this for foo-foo or to give everybody a warm and cuddly feeling. It was about realizing, developing, building tools that will in fact carry us forward.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it definitely brought us together more as a team.
So
all 4 days. And
that was the bigger overall, and Trish stated it in one of the posts, was that after that event, it was a realization that I picked everybody for a reason, and going through that event made everybody have a better understanding of the reason that I picked everybody and of the beauty of the collective group.
Right. Because, I mean, I didn't realize that going into it. So it's like that impression was definitely made upon me, and I assume if it was made on me, it was made on other people as well.
I really think that there were many steps forward from everybody in their own way, like as it was meant to be. I really do not know that it could have been any more of a success. And but here was my thing. It does not matter necessarily how you feel one way or the other about blood family, because I'll argue both sides of it. Each one of these individuals I self-selected to be a part of my family. So I have released a certain amount of trust to them individually. My problem is they look at each other and they did not choose or select to be on each other's team. The only thing that I was getting out of it from them was them having a little bit of trust that I saw something, but they were not seeing it in each other. And that's what we got coming out of the other side of this. They all started to recognize the strengths that the others were bringing to the table and how all of those strengths worked with each other so that collectively the whole is way stronger than the parts. And I see that. It was getting them to see that.
Well, and getting us aware of how each person thinks and like how they go about processing information, which is huge because, I mean, obviously if you're telling somebody something, you're wanting them to receive the information. And if I'm delivering it to you wrong and you're not telling me I'm delivering it to you wrong and I'm unaware I'm delivering it to you wrong, we're not getting anywhere.
And that makes the information no less relevant. It's just legitimately a difference between showing up at somebody's desk and delivering information and saying, let's talk about this, or sending them a message 30 minutes ahead of time to say, I'm going to show up at your desk with this information and I would like to talk about it, because there are personalities that can, in the moment, go on the fly and think critically. There are other personalities that gives them anxiety. They're put on the spot. And if you just simply gave them 30 minutes notice to actually collect their thoughts, then they would be ready for that engagement when you, in fact, then showed up at their desk. And it was a massive realization amongst the group as a whole about who responded how and what was the best way to communicate to get the best result out of each person.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm definitely one of those people who would like the heads up going into it. And it's like, can I have critical thought on the fly? Yeah, absolutely I can. But it's like, I also like to be super focused in whatever I'm doing. So it's like, it's always a curveball when you're deep into figuring out some new system, HubSpot, and then somebody comes in and they're like, let's talk about Facebook ads. And I'm like, oh shit, hold on. My mind was going this way. You want to go that way. I need a minute here to fully catch up to what's going on.
So in that respect, because the example that I gave, I'm one of the worst, because I am the type of person that I don't generally wait for information to come to me. I will go after the information. So I would just show up on your doorstep and be like, this is what I want to talk about. Let's sit down and talk. Generally speaking, they flow well with me being me and letting me be me. But even through the offsite itself, I was able to learn that if I know that I'm coming to them, generally I'm not coming to them on the fly. I know that I'm going to come to them, but they don't know until I'm at their desk. So I'm finding out myself that I can get more and better out of them if I just give them a little bit of notice so that they are able to actually collect their thoughts. And when I say they, not all of them, it's just that through actually looking at everybody's strengths and having these conversations, I was able to find out the three of them that really would help their performance. And then realize the three of them that they were fine going with that flow with me.
Yeah, well, I mean, it just goes right back into feeding anxiety, and I don't even want to say self-doubt, but self-doubt. It just looks bad when the boss shows up like, hey, I want to talk about this, and you're completely somewhere else, and then you're fucking around trying to figure out where you're at on the computer, all while you're sitting there with that face. Like, yeah, so, and...
But I mean, let's be clear, because he might talk about that face. They all recognized that I am not your average entrepreneur. And I'm not in many different ways, because, I mean, we're all different. I'm me. But I'm willing to let them make mistakes. I'm willing to let them fail if it means that they're going to learn. They just know that my toleration and that fuse gets real short if it's a mistake on the second and on the third. But failing and making mistakes, being caught off guard, that's just part of life. And as long as it's learning and that lesson is learned and it's applicably applied to the next, I think that I'm pretty reasonable to work for. And I'm saying it like that because the bigger picture is I think that I am pretty reasonable to work with. But everybody has their idiosyncrasies, their quirks, their personality traits.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're never going to find the perfect, no complaint person to work with or for. But I mean, on the overall, I would agree with that statement. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah. So what did you think of the rolling out of the strengths assessment?
From like when we first took it, or on just the offsite specifically?
I mean, a little bit of both, because that was the thing. Is that, don't get me wrong, there was a cringe point when Rebecca realized that you had access to a bunch of information 24 hours before everybody else had access to that information. She felt like you were able to get a jump on everybody else when it come to dissecting that information.
And I never even looked at it.
Really?
Shane sent it. I printed it. It sat at Vickers. I didn't have time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we were installing cameras until 2:00 that morning to leave. But, I mean, I did see Trish's and Skylar's and your assessment. But, I mean, I'm pretty sure I put mine right out there. I would have loved to have seen the entire report on everybody. I still would love to see the entire report on everybody.
Well, and I mean, this is, I believe it's called a Clifton Strengths Assessment. And basically the argument is that you have roughly 32 strengths. I think it's 32, somewhere around 30.
30 to 35.
Yeah. And basically what it is disciplines that you pull from, like all humans, strengths and disciplines that you pull from, but what are your dominant strengths and disciplines that you are that you most naturally pull from, that are your go-tos? Because the chart that Shane laid out for them was to show everybody on the team their top 5 strengths.
Yeah. And I would have liked to see that expanded to 10.
Yeah.
But even with just the 5, though, just as the days went on, it was very clear that those strengths lined up with the person. Like, I was able to have conversations with each person or in the group and be like, oh, shit, that's where that came from. And that, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there's that one. Oh, okay.
And the beautiful part that gives me high hopes about all of this is that I am removing myself from the day-to-day for a 3-month period in a month and a half. And the bulk of the strengths of the team lie in the strengths of execution. So I have high expectations about what I'm going to come back to at the end of that 3 months. Because I'm looking for execution. And I do know that you have been one of the people that in the other times where I have left on a business trip or left for any duration of 24 or 48 hours, generally there's a noticeable something that is done when I come back.
Yeah, because you can't say no if you don't know.
And there we go. In order for that to happen, there has to be trust. And I think that yes, trust should be earned, but if you're going to have any semblance of freedom in entrepreneurship, you're going to have to extend trust and wait for it to be violated. If you make people earn every ounce of trust before you're willing to give any, you won't get their full buy-in and participation. And I have found it easier to make character judgments and assessments on people and extend trust and then ask them not to violate that trust.
That's typically how I like to work it.
I'm saying this from a position of realization today. It took me a long time to get to that realization. There are many realizations that I have come to over the last year, 2 years, 3 years, that I kick myself for not getting to in the first 5 to 10 because I know how much further down the road that we could be. On the overall, what did you find most valuable about the offsite itself? Or what were the things that really stuck out in your mind as a huge value add for separating everybody from their daily tasks to be locked away for almost 4 days?
My initial response is not the answer you're going to want, but the amazement of all of us in the stars on the first night I thought was pretty awesome.
That was an added bonus that I didn't
didn't even cross my mind to even think about that.
Mhm.
But it's like, it's been, I don't even know how, at least 10 years for me to see that type of stars.
Because, like, we were out in the middle of nowhere, and then we turned off all the lights in the lodge itself to just totally kill all light pollution, and it ended up being 3 just absolutely
crystal clear,
beautiful nights.
Yeah. And that definitely impacted all of us. I mean, that was a good time. Actually, business-wise, how to interact with each person individually and how we can work together as a team, playing off people's strengths and then also making us aware of each other's weaknesses to stop each other from making those rushed mistakes.
I am I don't know. I try and get straight to the point with people. I don't hire people for them to shore up their weaknesses. I hire people to exploit their strengths. So as far as I'm concerned, if you're going to shore up your weaknesses, you should shore up your weaknesses on your own time because you just humanly want to shore up your weaknesses. But you should be playing to your strengths, because if I put the puzzle together correctly, your strengths are going to balance out somebody else's weaknesses. And when you collectively work as a team, the phases of the work and the type of work is going to determine who should be front running due to their strengths. And the only way that you actually get that kind of benefit out of a team is if they truly do understand their own and each other's strengths and weaknesses.
Well, and trust one another.
Yes.
Then you're able to take a larger, complex problem and feed it to the people who's got the strengths to feed it and get to a better outcome in the end.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, fuck, it was just that easy. All right. Thanks.
Well,
guys.
I mean, because that was before I get to the whole little thing with Antonio, this was a major milestone for me. The 18th birthday of Coffee Junkies was a huge significance in general. But I have been coming to realization, and then I felt like I started to get validity of what I was trying to accomplish inside of this offsite with this team. And then funny enough, I don't consume random content, but I've got a couple people that like I have an extreme amount of respect and admiration for, and I do consume their content. There's a bunch of information out there, and even after 18 years, I've got something that I can learn every day. So I'm not too proud to say that I got a couple people that I really do consume their stuff. It was odd that as I'm coming to these, what I felt like were epiphanies, that I'm also stumbling across some of these people's content that they've already been there, done that, and they're like, this is the purpose of an entrepreneur. And when I say purpose, I mean this is what they should be doing if they're really trying to exploit all the potential in their entrepreneurial journey. What I come to realize is that as an entrepreneur chasing the dream that I'm chasing, trying to exploit the potential that I know that these brands have, I am no longer in the business building business. I am in the people building business. I am in the team building business. And that is only to say that I'm realizing that where I can have the greatest impact is just working on a different puzzle. My greatest impact can be had by letting each one of you work on the operational puzzles and how they coexist with each other. And the puzzle that I work on is bringing the best people to the team to make a stronger team of people. So if my core thing is to always be focusing on the strength of the team and making sure that the team has the tools that it needs. Each one of you is collectively working on your piece. You are focusing on the businesses individually and the brands individually. I'm focusing on the puzzle that is the team itself. It was a great success for me to be able to come out of this offsite and that light bulb to go off in all of your heads. For you to see in each other what I saw, and at moments was becoming frustrated because you guys weren't seeing it in each other. Like, I naturally see these things, and I saw how beautiful it could be, and I was getting frustrated that you guys were not naturally seeing it in each other. So that's where I come back to say, I'm a tester and an iterator. I didn't know if this offsite was going to go well, and I didn't know the good that was going to come out of it, and I couldn't have asked for anything better to actually come out of it, so much to the point that I'm looking forward to doing the next one and then thinking about how can I get other team members involved, because the more people that I can get that light bulb to go off in their head,
the more we can do.
Yes.
Yeah, and I mean, I wish I could pinpoint a reasoning behind like why we didn't see it just in our brief interactions working with one another. It's like some of us work with others more than some of the others did. It's like I think I probably work with the most amount of those people individually, but I don't know why it took that to make it occur. Like, I don't know if that makes sense in my head. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it does. I think a lot of it has to do with just natural skepticism and comparing on a daily basis. It's human nature to be skeptical. It's human nature to compare to other people. That was not what this offsite was about.
Right.
This was about letting your guard down, becoming vulnerable. And that was the point of the offsite, of creating a safe space for everybody to come and say, okay, Jason brought us here for a reason. This is a comfortable space we are detached from. We have everything that we need. We're not going to frickin' starve. So let's get down to doing some of that deep work that requires little bit of...
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're fine.
I was going to say, everything got better once we figured out the food situation.
Once you figured out the food situation. Okay. I felt like everything got better when everybody allowed themselves to be a little bit vulnerable and start having those personable learning moments of conversation. I like, there was nothing wrong with the group communication and activity. Every moment it got better in between breaks and days when it started getting interpersonal communication between people that I knew that hadn't spent time getting to know each other.
Yeah, and I know. I hate to be like, well, I came in there with an agenda, but I did. Yep. I mean, there was certain people I wanted to make sure that I had time to go actually speak to on a personal level. Mm-hmm. And I felt like I accomplished that, and I think it was beneficial for both parties. All parties. I shouldn't say both.
No. And I mean, and towards that end of it, I think that I will speak for Rebecca, because it'll probably be more point across or blunt and bold coming out of my mouth than it would hers. I love Rebecca for all the right reasons, but again, her management style is completely opposite of mine. I will go find information. She will wait for information to come to her. Thereby, I will go build relationships. She will wait for relationship building to come to her. So in a 6-month period, I will build relationships because I will actively go build relationships. And at the end of the 6 months, I'll be like, well, how's your relationship building going? Well, they're starting to come around. That's frustrating to me because I was able to tell her, like, no, as a leader inside of all of this, that you are equally responsible. And the way the environment was set up, she was able to have those one-on-ones. Now, because I was observing from a distance, I don't know whether she was approaching them or whether they were approaching her, but I saw the one-on-ones occurring. And when we got to the end of it and I started hearing godmother statements, I realized that those connections were in fact occurring. And that's what warmed my heart, because I like those type of connections, the building of trust where you don't fear leaning on each other. That was the important thing.
Yeah, if I had one complaint for the whole thing, it was we didn't have enough free time, for lack of a better word.
Mm-hmm.
Like the first 2 days, I felt like we went super late, and it was like dinner, go to bed.
I think that in all, we could have tacked on an extra day with no curriculum, and it
would have. The last night, to me, is when we had the most actual connections taking place. Yeah. To which you and Rebecca just sat there as me and Stephanie just went back and forth for I don't even know how long time.
Mm-hmm. I was happy to sit back and listen. That's so. I guess my little lesson, and like, I'm very big about mental and physical health, but I'm very big about owning it personally and having the discipline to follow through and do the hard thing. I don't necessarily force it on any of them, but as I'm talking to them about what it is that I'm doing and how it is beneficial to me. And by way of that, it is an encouragement that I would like to see them do the same thing. I'm big about free will. I mean, if I'm telling you I'm doing something and I'm experiencing a positive result out of it and you opt not to do it, well, that's on you in general. I'm still looking for, I need a result when it comes to business. But in the middle of all of this, Antonio pulled me to the side and he said, I'm engaging with the group. I understand what we're doing, but in everything that we're doing, my head is so full of ideas, I'm having a problem focusing. And he said, how do you deal with that? And for a brief moment, I was a smartass, but it opened the door for me to actually go into a bigger lesson because I really, I will talk about things, but generally what I'm talking about is something that I'm doing, because my answer was to him, what do you think that I do every morning? I showed you what I was doing while you guys were in there eating. I was meditating, and it was glorious. When I say glorious, I'm saying those 2 sessions of meditation that was just some of the best shit that I have had in a long time. And it was all because of that water feature. That water feature was
and the weather.
Yeah, but I could have overcome the weather. If the weather hadn't have been so nice, I likely would have just wore an extra piece of clothing. I still would have sat outside. I still would have. That water feature was wonderful because they say, well, what is about meditation? Well, it's teaching you to quiet your mind. That's true. What is meditation? Meditation is teaching you how to focus. And in the moment of meditation, when I was sitting back and just paying attention to my breathing and that audio of just focusing on that, they built this water feature where it was 3 levels. They pump water up top.
Up somewhere.
Yeah, I'll throw a picture up. It was, and the water would fall over and then fall into the actual man-made lake. But the audible of it was so wonderful. It was, I don't know how long I was out there because I didn't have a stopwatch.
A long time.
I just know that I snapped out of it when he sneezed. because I didn't even know that anybody was outside or near me. And when I looked over at him, he was like, "I'm sorry, man. I was trying to hold it for as long as possible."
I held that sneeze so hard. I was like, my eye's going to pop. And then I couldn't hold it. And I just seen you jump as soon as I was like, fuck. I just zapped him right out of that one.
The point that I'm trying to make, where people are like, you know what? Your mind is about as powerful as it gets. That's why you are capable of being your own worst enemy. And most people will be like, oh, I got a pill for that. Yeah, wrong answer. Meditation is that healthy way of you getting control of your mind. And meditation, the practice, is in silencing your mind and being present in the moment. But the practice itself is about getting control of your mind so that you can call upon it to focus when and where you need to focus. So when he told me, I'm having a problem focusing, how do you solve that? It was a great opportunity for me to say, this is how I solve it. And I do it in a natural way because I am adamant that you stay away from the pills. I was the Bobby Boucher. I mean, like, the pills are the devil. Like, stay away from the damn pills. I am not going to sit here and tell you that there is not a place for them, that people with chemical imbalances do not need them. I'm just simply saying, I think people should look inward and look for homeopathic ways to solve their ailments, to get control of their own mind and bodies, before going to quick fix, oh, we got a pill for that, pharmaceutical problem solving. Because the meditation really has helped me. I am a stereotypical entrepreneur in that my mind runs faster than the average tick. I mean, that's part of what will fascinate people when they look at me, and that's part of what will frustrate people when they look at me, because my brain will just move faster than the average. That can also lead to insomnia and difficulty focusing. And it comes down to, your mind is a very powerful thing. It will control you if you don't control it. And I think meditation is a building of a muscle to control, as opposed to a pharmaceutical pill that relaxes that muscle so all control is lost. And I don't think that is the healthy way to go about getting control of your mind and ensuring that you have the ability to stop yourself from being your own worst enemy. I don't know if you have attempted to meditate, but I told Antonio that I didn't quite understand why he pulled me away from everybody to bring that up to me, but that I wanted to openly talk about it because it was a good point of there's 10 ways to skin a cat. And if you have a problem, there are ways that you can address that problem internally without going and looking for negative, harmful ways that inevitably that they do just as much harm as good. I want to see everybody live a high quality of life. And meditation is a tool that it took me a long time to truly understand the value of it. Because one, I felt like a freaking idiot even trying it to begin with. And then I realized there's a huge difference between trying something and doing something. So it is a continue to do it and continue to do it until finally, like, that gateway opens up and you start seeing the power behind good meditation.
Well, it just comes to understand how the brain works. It's like you're creating a pathway, a focus.
Yes.
And it's like, so in the beginning, there is no pathway. And then you get a little more, you get a little more, and a little more.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to keep doing it. And I do meditate. I don't meditate as much now as I used to. Only if I start feeling like I can't stop my mind from running. Then it's like, okay, back to the swing. But yeah, I mean, I think that's what gives me my focus. I can't prove that, but I feel it.
and the reason that I'm even mentioning, because I'm sitting there going, look, I know I'm just a dumb blue collar guy. But if I can find a tool like this, and I'm telling you, like, there's good benefit to it, then like just potentially something. It's not just for the academics. It's not just for the brainiacs. It's not just for the high and mighty. Like, these are good tools out there that you can utilize, that if you are adamant that you are going to keep yourself out of the arms of the pharmaceutical industry, there's good tools out there to use. But it does come down to some mental fortitude, some discipline development, and a little bit of grit that literally is like that determination of, no, I'm going to figure this out myself. There's nothing wrong with asking for help. I'm just telling you that pharmaceutical help should be like the last ditch effort. And I don't think most people are turning into schizophrenics. Like, that right there is last ditch effort. Like, when you're at the point where you might need to be in a straitjacket, okay, then just maybe the pharmaceutical industry. Yeah. Outside of that, there are many things that you can do. I mean, my son even referred to, and he trying yoga, and I'm like, you shouldn't try. And I'm familiar with yoga. I'm familiar with the poses. Yoga is not something that I have actively pursued. But I know plenty of people that have, and I know that there is a lot of good that can come out of it. And I don't believe people, rephrase that, too many people talk about trying things and not enough about doing things. And it is in the doing that creates the muscle memory. And the simple fact is, you're going to suck when you do it the first time.
And probably the first handful of times.
Yes, but you keep doing it, and generally you move towards a point of competency, and then make your judgment on whether it's working for you or not. And if it's working for you, then move towards mastery. The offsite was, I just could not have asked for better. I couldn't have asked for a better team, couldn't have asked for a better coach, couldn't have asked for a better weather, couldn't have asked for a better environment. It was a success across the board, and it cost me a lot of money. I'm saying that because I'm being real. When you are pulling an entire team plus a coach away for 4 days, it's going to cost a lot of money. I'm not saying that you have to go to that extreme. There are offsites. There are ways of conducting offsites. Even in an 8-hour period, a lot of progress can be made. I just wanted to test on a bigger scale because I knew that it would be outside of the exercise times where they were able to be communal, that a lot of growth would be capable of occurring. I knew that it would take multiple days for that to settle in. So that's why we set it over a 4-day period. And 2024 is going to be a great gauge for me on the return on investment. And I'm sorry, I just don't see. I think I'm going to be able to get to the end of 2024 and I will see a 10x off of the investment to attributed revenue that will come off of the team working together and pushing things forward. And about like most everything, it looks expensive up front, but the payoff on the backside makes it worth it, and definitely makes it worth doing again and again and again. So I do look forward to our next offsite, because that was such a success that we will be putting the next one on the books, and this time we'll shoot for a summertime date.
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
We probably won't get lucky like that again.
Final thoughts on the overall experience, on the offsite itself, on the team, thoughts in general.
I think it was very much worth it. We will, I feel like that was worth it. I guess we'll see how it pans out if it was truly worth it. I'm liking to think that it will be. The one final thing I'll bring up from the offsite that surprised me, I guess, was the feeling that multiple people had, myself, I'll even put myself included, which then I looked it up actually the last day, and it's called imposter syndrome, where you don't feel like there's a reason that you're there, like you don't belong to be where you're at. And I thought that was a very interesting thing that just came up from multiple people why we were there.
I will add to that. I have struggled with imposter syndrome. Mine has been, at least when I've struggled with it, in that I'm 18 years into entrepreneurship, and as far as I'm concerned, I should already be doing hundreds of millions of dollars. So the fact that I'm only doing millions of dollars is it bothers me to where I'm like, do I belong? Should I even be doing this? Because, you big dummy, it took you 18 years to get this far. Is it really going to take you another 18 years to get where you thought you should have been in the first 10 years?
Maybe. We'll find out.
I don't believe that's the case, because I have shown that I'm good about, even if it takes me long to get to the lesson, once I learn the lesson, I do compound the lessons themselves.
Apply.
Yes. When I became a union rep, and towards the end of my career at Chrysler, it was not that I wanted to be a president. I wanted to be a part of leadership. And so when I became a union steward, I was part of that leadership, and I was fine being a part of a leadership team. I was not the leader. I was a part of a leadership team. When I left Chrysler, number one, I left for freedom. But I admittedly, due to the election results on the re-elect after losing my son, I felt betrayed. It was that I said, I'm capable of being the guy. I just didn't aspire to be the guy, but you've put me in a position where I've found a better way in life, and I will go build my own team. It just requires me being the guy. And part of the struggle has been through knowing that it is my responsibility to be the leader, and then gauging what kind of success I was actually having. Not only being the leader, but being the coach, being the developer, being the puzzle maker. You guys solidified making me feel a lot more comfortable in my role as the leader because of the way I watched all of you come together. You validated my choices. You validated my picks. You validated the puzzle pieces that I put together and thought, this can be really good if they can just understand how really good. And that's why I brought up the Bad News Bears. And then I thought, shit, did I pick the wrong analogy? And then I think it was Stephanie was like, no, actually, like, that's really good. That fits. And sooner or later, I'll literally lay out a podcast to try and make everybody understand why I say the Bad News Bears, because I think that all of us individually, you would look at us and you would size us up and be like, maybe, right circumstances, like maybe. But the story of the Bad News Bears was one person coming into a group of misfits and getting that group of misfits to work together to kick ass. And in that respect, like, I have always known that I was the underdog. I've always been fine with being underestimated and being the underdog, but I always knew I couldn't do it myself. And I have always had to make picks and place bets, and that offsite, and then coincidentally it being on the 18th birthday of me starting my first real entrepreneurial journey was I understand where the imposter syndrome can come from many different directions. And in a lot of ways, you guys validated that maybe I'm not just the complete big dummy that I tell myself I am sometimes.
Well, we're all always harder on ourselves, usually.
Yes, because I told my sister that, like, that's part of the evolution. I have gotten past competition. I'm not worried about competing with others. The pie is abundantly huge. It can be as much as you want. I'm competing with myself.
Man, that brings up a whole nother point there. Go ahead.
No, and if you want to, go ahead.
It doesn't matter. I can bring it up afterwards.
What I was going to say is that another part of the evolution of myself is that human nature is to naturally compare yourself to other people. That's where the whole statement came of keeping up with the Joneses. These are two humps that I have mentally gotten over. My competition is with my own best, with myself, and my comparison is with my own self. I think that it's a healthier way to live life. And you will battle imposter syndrome a whole lot less if you're just simply trying to best your own best, as opposed to competing with somebody else, not knowing what their starting point was, not knowing what they went through. Like, it just makes no rational human sense to compare your life track and where you are and how you got there up against somebody else's. It is complete apples to oranges. There is just no comparison there.
I mean, these 4 days proved everybody's transition through life has been completely different.
Absolutely. So you had somewhere that you were looking to go. You got something that you want to say, or you want me to wrap this up?
Nah, you can wrap it up. I'll save it for off air. I don't want to upset anybody.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I will leave it at that. Again, questions, comments, snide remarks, I welcome them. You never know when it'll be an inspiration to another podcast. If you know somebody that needs to hear this, please share the show. And if you are actually listening to this and you have not subscribed, please subscribe. I'm a guy. I'm trying to build something, and I really try not to look at the metrics, but I'm not going to deny that every once in a while I check in on them, and I'm just looking to to see that upward mobility. So, all right, till next time, you guys have a good night.
And if you find a boss who doesn't want to take you to an offsite, send them this. It's worth it. Spend the money.